I'm the Doctor.
So what is it?
I'm the Doctor.
So what is it?
I'm the Doctor.
Only joking.
I'm the Doctor.
So what is it?
I'm the Doctor.
So what is it?
I'm the Doctor.
Only joking.
I'm the Doctor.
So what is it?
Small off-duty Czechoslovakian traffic warden.
So what is it?
I'm the Doctor.
Only joking.
I'm the Doctor.
So what is it?
I'm the Doctor.
All right, dudes, it's time for another episode of It's Time to Rewind. I am known as Bubbawheat, not the Bubbawheat, not first name Bubba, last name Wheat, just Bubbawheat. This season is Red Who, where I'm covering British sci-fi like Red Dwarf and Doctor Who, and joining me 3 million years in the future via the TARDIS is my guest, Sean German. How are you doing today?
Fantastic. Thank you very much for having me. Glad
Yeah,
to be
I'm
here.
glad to get you on, and especially, and we'll get to it in here in just a little bit, but it's nice to have someone who's relatively new to Red Dwarf on here.
Yeah. I don't know if it was something in the zeitgeist, but it's a little over a year. I think I started watching before you announced the podcast, but it was pretty close to around that time. So yeah, I can bring fresh eyes.
Yeah, I forget exactly. I believe I was one of the people that was pushing you into it. That was I forget how the discussion started, but that was right around the time whenever I was doing my own Red Dwarf rewatch myself, and also before I decided to do this as the next season. But yeah, but I've actually, why don't we go ahead and get into that? So, how did that all come about? Like, what made you decide to start, to give Red Dwarf a shot?
Well, I couldn't figure out why I hadn't watched it already. Because it seemed to be right up my wheelhouse. I grew up on a lot of BBC comedies, of course, and Monty Python and Faulty Towers and Are You Being Served and that sort of stuff, and then BBC sci-fi like Doctor Who, and then the sci-fi comedies or comedic sci-fi like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Like, I don't know why I hadn't watched it when it originally aired. I don't know if it was just most of that BBC stuff in the United States was on the public television. So maybe my local public television station, just didn't carry it or something. But yeah, I'd always heard
Or maybe it
about
was just the timing was off, because I know, like, that's how I think a lot of the people in the US discovered Red Dwarf. And I know, I think, practically every PBS station has their own schedule. So
Yeah.
potentially it might have gotten relegated to late nights, or that the timing just didn't happen to work out for you.
Yeah. So for whatever reason, never watched it, the original runs. But I'd heard about it. I was kind of aware, and seemed like the sort of thing I would like. And then, yeah, I don't know, maybe it was you discussing your rewatch that made me realize, like, hey, let me, these things are available now. It's not hard to find video of things. So let me give it a watch. Yeah. And then, that's pretty much how it happened. And I've started jumping around a little bit just to keep up with the podcast. I think I've done everything through series 4, and then the individual episodes for each of the podcasts. So it's been interesting. I found that the first few episodes of the first series didn't capture me right away. So I have to admit, I was not a fan from the beginning. I got the feeling there were a lot of like cultural, contemporary, pop culture references that I wasn't getting, either because I'm not British, or it's not the 1980s or 1990s anymore. And there's probably a lot of stuff I would have gotten then that I forgot now. But kind of few episodes in, once they, I guess, set everything up and introduced all the characters, then it kind of, the plots and the comedy rely more on the relationships between the characters and less on any kind of outside references. And then it really picked up for me after that. So I can see why people like it and why I'd heard about it for decades. So there you go.
Yeah, and it is one of those that I mean it's not as quick as of a watch anymore because they do keep making new episodes, but
Mhm.
typically they other than the two kind of movies or like three-part episodes, however you want to describe them, but they're just pretty much 6 episodes per season, so it's not a there's not a huge amount of episodes to cover. It's not like we're talking Friends or The Simpsons.
Yeah, yeah. I'm in the final legs of a Golden Girl rewatch, which I think it's the seventh season. And at one point, um, we were halfway through the sixth season, and we're like, "Oh, only a season and a half. We must be getting close to the end, right?" No, that's 40 more episodes. A season and a half. There were like 24 or 26 episode seasons. So yeah, a season and a half of Golden Girls is 40 episodes. Um, it's it's a different kind of season.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. And for this week's episode, I we are going to be talking about Twentica, which is the first episode of series 11 of Red Dwarf, and it was originally released on September 22nd, 2016. So, you said like during your watch you've just made it through series 4, so this is kind of your only experience here with series um series 11. So have you just watched episodes like through the ones that have released, or I believe I sent you like you have access to the spreadsheet to see what
oh yeah.
episodes are on the are upcoming.
Yeah, so I did. Yeah, I have been consulting the spreadsheet so I could do my homework ahead of time. So I've kept up with the spreadsheet, and I watched the series 9, which is one of those um, either three-part episode or you could call it a TV movie.
Hmm.
Um, watch
Yeah,
one of
Back to
those.
Earth.
Yeah, Back to Earth. Yeah.
Yeah, that one is kind of contentious. I mean, as someone who's kind of just recently dabbled into Red Dwarf, and as someone in the U.S., because I feel like there is a bit of a cultural difference between Brits and Americans on in terms of Back to Earth, because that tends to get a lot of hate from what I hear from the fandom.
Hmm.
You don't have to go too deep into it, but what are your brief thoughts? Like, did you like Back to Earth?
I liked it. I did like it. I don't know if it was my favorite episodes, but yeah, I it's one of those things. It's a great series, so even their less good episodes are still better than most. So yeah, I don't really have any complaints.
And
But
could you tell a shift between like, I guess series like, I think 7 or 8, and then versus whenever you get into Back to Earth and Fathers and Sons and this one Twentica, like um, or does it all kind of still just feel like Red Dwarf to you?
it feels a lot of yeah. It's kind of just feeling like Red Dwarf. Maybe on rewatch, I'll pick up some more nuances and um, detect more of the difference. I mean, obviously there is some aging, just the actors aging.
Hmm.
I think the deliveries get more nuanced and more subdued than the early seasons. I don't know if that's maturing as a person or maturing as an actor or maturing as a character, um, but other than that, yeah, I haven't really picked up huge changes. It does see, and it's surprisingly not just for the number of seasons, but the span of time, the break between some of the series, kind of the multi-year breaks that they're able to keep. I thought a consistency that was surprising.
Yeah, that I kind of felt that too during my watch last year, that I did kind of feel a dip in series 7 and 8, but I liked whenever they came back, and I thought that they recaptured a lot of the same magic that they had in the earlier episodes, even as the actors have started much more noticeably aging. I do think that there is a bit more of nostalgia writing. I think that there is
Hmm.
a fair number of callbacks to earlier episodes, and I think those kind of help if you're familiar enough with the older episodes. And I do think that it helps if you kind of watch them in relatively short succession versus, someone that watched the first six or seven series when they aired and on VHS and then came back to the new series, 10, 15 years later whenever they were new.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So yeah, this
So
is
yeah.
the, jumping into the, 11th series. And I believe that, I didn't do a ton of reading, but I believe that series 11 and 12 were kind of filmed back to back, roughly. Because one of the like trivia items I've read about this episode is that in some of the scenes in the quarters, or on Starbug, they shot it with lower lighting because the set had changed a little bit because they actually picked those up whenever they were filming for series 12.
Hmm.
Because I guess this
Oh.
was shot like right around the Christmas holiday, so right around the time whenever we're recording this.
Oh, interesting. I'll keep an eye out for that.
And then yeah, we're introduced to it's not it's kind of a new um enemy, but it's they're simulants, which they have shown like other simulants have shown up on the show before. They're like cybernetic beings that hate humans apparently.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah.
And these are kind of a newer design, and they definitely feel like they're heavily influenced from the Star Trek's The Borg because they have like the little lights, the red light shining on like in the corner of their helmets, very much
Hmm.
like Locutus, and uh their names are all numbers. Like there isn't a
Yeah.
seven of nine, but it's like three of 63.
Yeah, that is, yeah, definitely very big Borg feeling to it.
And I do enjoy this opening sequence with this hostage negotiation where the simulants are trying to negotiate for what they claim is the remains of one of their crew members that's the Red Dwarf crew have been using to prop up the leg of their pool table.
Yeah, I like the way they have a lot of, I like the little time loop that they use a lot. They have a lot of episodes that have stuff like that where yeah, they've got Rimmer hostage, but they take him hostage after they do the negotiation.
Yeah. Which that's a it's funny. I picked a lot of these episodes just because I it's a combination of I thought it was one of the better episodes of the season, and I did kind of gravitate towards ones that had some sort of time travel involved, even if they weren't necessarily timed loops. But uh, a lot of times whenever I'm revisiting these, I'm finding out that there are like these little time loop moments in a lot of these episodes that I picked. And this is another one where we get this like weird time loop because they show Rimmer as a hostage and they're trying to
Yeah.
figure out how they have Rimmer as a hostage whenever Rimmer is
Yeah.
sitting right there.
Right. Is he a clone? Is he from like a different dimension? Basically figuring out like, do we really care about this Rimmer or can we disregard? Can he die
Yeah.
and we don't have to worry about it? Or well, Rimmer needs to worry about it. No, no one else was particularly worried, but Rimmer needed to know if he should be worried. Yeah.
And they have the great gag where they're doing that and they're saying maybe he's from a different universe, and Rimmer's like, so if he dies, that's no skin off our backs, and
No
they
skin off our
said,
backs.
or if he's a clone, and then he's like, okay, so if he dies, then that's no big deal to us. Or maybe he's you from the future. And then that's whenever Kat jumps in and he says,
Yeah.
again, no, that's not a problem to me.
Yeah, yeah. I want to break in. Oh, you mentioned Cat. Something I meant to bring up when we were just talking about my introduction to the show and being a new watcher. Until last year, until I started watching, I thought Cat was a vampire. I guess I had seen pictures or maybe seen short clips of the show, and I just saw a guy with fangs. I thought
Mhm.
Cat was a space vampire. And then I tune in and start watching, and I'm like, oh, no, he's a cat.
Yeah, he's literally a cat. And
He's
it's
literally a cat. I don't know, I just thought that was an amusing. It was amusing for me at least. Uh, my
yeah,
misinterpretation or what I expected of the show. So even from what I had heard or what I thought I had seen of it, it still surprised me.
yeah, and I still think it's kind of funny, and I don't think I don't think it gets discussed a ton, but the fact that he is a he's the descendant of a long race of cats,
Yeah,
uh, but he doesn't have a name other than Cat.
just cat.
And I don't believe that he ever I don't believe that he has an actual cat name. I I believe that he just always goes by Cat, and it kind of reminds me of like that '70s show Fez, because
Right,
in that show Fez is not his name; it just stands for foreign exchange student.
right. So cat is like Fez.
Yeah, and
Yeah, so
I
it's I would expect that he would have a name and just the other characters never use it. But yeah, so he's just cat.
yeah, and he's completely okay with that. He
He's
never
okay with
tries
that.
to correct them or anything. And there's no, even though we do have moments of other members of the cat race, even though a couple of them are potentially uh, not real, but
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
but
And Cat's the type, like he would definitely speak up if he did not want to be called Cat. He would let them
yeah,
know.
yeah,
Uh,
very much so.
all right. Anyway, sorry for the digression. Sorry. We can we can get back to yeah, to trying to figure out do we need to worry about this Rimmer? And Cat's not worried one way or the other.
Yeah, and we kind of we kind of mention it, but it's just to make things clear. Whenever they get whenever the simulants get the item that they want, then they kidnap Rimmer from which it was Rimmer from the future. It was Rimmer from just then, and then
Yeah.
they give him back to like just 2 seconds later.
Yeah. The future, but like but 2 minutes, 5 minutes in the future.
Yeah, but Rimmer has experienced, he experienced being held captive for that amount of time.
Yeah. Yeah. So I wonder, so if if they hadn't paid the ransom, would they would the expandoid still have kidnapped Rimmer?
I imagine so.
Okay. I guess they'd have
Yeah.
to follow through on the threat or I guess well they already had. Time travel's confusing.
Yes, very much so. And especially whenever you're dealing with time travel in a comedy,
Yeah.
because, comedy time travel doesn't have to follow the rules 100%. This isn't Primer, so they if they want to fudge a few facts for the comedy's sake, then they're allowed to.
Yeah, it's a lot more dangerous because yeah, they can break the rules as long as it's funny. Um, they can get away with a lot more than yeah, if you're trying to be scientific about it.
Hmm.
Although I
And then
think they're generally good. I mean, they there's some engineering issues in terms of the amount of energy it would take to do some of these things, even if that's even if they are physically possible. But um, I think most of the cause and effect works out. They generally clean things up at the end.
yeah, I feel like, and I'm pretty sure I've said this before, but I feel like the majority of the sci-fi concepts explored in Red Dwarf are based on sound science and theories. and then they will occasionally fudge little bits here and there just to make it work for the story.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, and also, and they do things. Well, like in this episode, the loop, it's so small. So if you're going to just like the philosophical implications of time travel and causality and everything, um, they've got other things where they go deep into the past, which actually we'll see later. This is a relatively safe time loop, in terms of like disrupting, time and space and fracturing dimensions and whatnot, because it's just Rimmer from a few minutes in the future.
Yeah.
Whereas later on, they'll make a much bigger time jump and have potentially a much greater effect on the time space continuum.
Yeah, which that's, let's go ahead and go right into that. And that does remind me, like this, um, this season 11 episode, it is a much more unified concept because in a lot of the earlier season episodes, there is a lot of like A story and B story,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the A story is like the first 10, 15 minutes, and it has absolutely nothing to do with the B story, which is what the episode is titled after.
Yeah, but in this case, they tied together more closely.
Yeah. Yeah, this is it's kind of two parts of the same story, and it really kicks off pretty quickly because we they find out that the remains that the simulants wanted was actually I want to say chrono trigger. I didn't write it down, but that's it's some
Yeah.
time travel uh, mechanism, and that allows them to you know jump around in the future in order to uh, make themselves stronger in the present. And so the Starbug follows them in the time wake, and because there's a differential, they eventually find out that they arrived like 11 years after the simulants did.
Right.
And
Right.
we get this whole, another like little hiccup with the EMP, which they don't exactly realize what that is, but Crichton and Rimmer, they both it basically shut off as soon as they uh, land on as soon as they get into the planet's atmosphere.
Mhm.
And we get, another bit of Crichton humor with the his nipple, um,
For like the jumper cables,
yeah,
his
the,
what anodes?
yeah, the battery uh, attachment points with the positive and negative.
Negative. Well, when one's black and one is red, so you know which one is which.
Mhm. Even
I
though
thought
Lister
that.
says he always forgets which one is which. And they basically jumpstart him using the Starbucks engine.
Yeah. His terminals. They connect to his terminals.
Yeah, the battery
Uh,
terminals.
yeah.
And I do think that it's kind of a weird choice. Like, I guess maybe it was just done to create some movement in the scene, but after they jumpstart him, Lister says that Crichton has to walk back and forth as fast as possible so his servo drives can uh, help recharges basically like his
Yeah.
alternator can recharge his
I was gonna say,
internal
does
battery.
he have an alternator? Yeah, because that's the same thing with a car. When you jump start a car, they say let it run for a little bit so the battery can recharge. So yeah. So Crichton can power himself once he's going. He can charge himself.
Yeah, and then they kind of skip over how they turn Rimmer back on. He just can't, I think his light bead just kind of starts working again.
Yeah, I guess as the yeah, he just kind of blinks back into being. I always wondered that though, and I don't know, maybe um, their idea of a hologram is different than mine, but just the fact that like he can leave the ship, he seems to be, he's not dependent on, um, I don't know, whatever it is that makes a hologram.
Yeah,
A
that's something
projector
that's
or doesn't there need to be a source that's projecting the hologram? Like I can understand seeing and hearing him on the ship, but then he like leaves the ship. It's like, wait, how can he do that?
yeah, their concept for him as a hologram has changed over the years because in the in one of the early seasons that you saw, like I believe Thanks for the Memory,
Hmm.
they're on the planet and he's in a cage. And the reason that he's in a cage is because
Oh,
that's their explanation. That's what's projecting him as a hologram on the planet. And then it evolves, I think, somewhere around series four to what they refer to as a light B. And if you watch closely,
okay.
whenever he shuts off, there's like a little, a small little, like kind of the about twice the size of a bullet. It's this, metallic piece kind of drops from the where Rimmer was sitting, and that's what they call a light B, and
A
that's
light
what's
B.
projecting him.
Oh, okay.
So he's basically being projected from the inside out.
Oh, okay. I missed that, or maybe not up to that point yet.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
that's
because I do remember him needing the cage to leave, and then I'm not sure, like, and then at some point that seemed to go away. But all right,
yeah,
I just need to keep watching.
and I believe in series six, whenever you get to Legion, that's whenever he switches from soft light to hard light. So whenever he was soft light, he's not able to touch, technically not able to touch anything, even though
Mhm.
they kind of explain away the fact that he can, technically his feet touch the ground and his butt touches seats, but his hands will pass through tables and such whenever the story needs it.
Mhm.
But he eventually gets upgraded to a hard light drive. And after that, he's, just basically exists physically everywhere. And in a way, he's actually, more than human because he's much more impervious to damage with the hard light drive than normal human skin would be, even though it doesn't make him any less cowardly.
Right. That's a personality flaw. That has nothing to do with his physicality. Uh, but it's good to know. Yeah, not that it bothered me, because again, um, with the comedy, they can get a lot away with a lot more. At least I let them get away with a lot more in terms of the science and engineering. I never really, I mean, I noticed it, but I never really questioned it, or it wasn't a problem. It's like, yeah, sure, let them walk around. There's only four characters in the whole show, so you can't afford to lose one when you go on land.
Yeah, and they don't have the budget to keep making him pass through things
Yeah.
all the time. And then they make their way to the city, to the occupied places, and it's I guess let me ask you, like, what do you think of the overall design and the concept of this Twentica? Because they do find out that once again they're on Earth, which they tend to,
Mhm.
even being 3 million miles, 3 million years away, they still, anytime there's any time travel involved or any sort of travel involved, they always seem to make their way back to Earth.
Back to Earth. Yeah, which is another issue of if you're traveling in time, what happens to your position in space, and is it,
Hmm.
is it negligible? Is it, once you've gotten to the point that you're traveling through time, as essentially the universe is reduced to a point you can kind of travel anywhere, or is it the opposite where it compounds the issue that it's harder to travel
Well,
your
and they even
location?
did
But
make that. They even did kind of make that joke in, or make a point out of that in, one of the earlier episodes that I covered. I forget which one, but they traveled to the Middle Ages, but they're still out in deep space, and they're like,
yeah,
I
right,
believe
yeah.
out of time. That was the episode, and we're like, they they say, yeah, we're in the Middle Ages. Yeah, we're in the Middle Ages in deep space.
Yeah, yeah. So it's interesting. Yeah, it was interesting design. Probably easier budgetary wise to either stay on the ship or travel to Earth. It kind of what I guess what 1952 could have looked like if the expandoids had already been there for 11 years.
Yeah, this is. it's kind of a weird but interesting concept because they're in, in Earth in the 1950s, but the technology and fashion and culture has kind of stalled in the 1920s because
Hmm.
that's whenever more or less whenever they arrived, even though that's I don't think the math quite adds up if they've been there for 11 years and it's in the 50s. I don't know how they kind of regressed back to the 20s. But there's this, they see signs of about prohibition, but they also see signs for rum. So they
Hmm.
can't figure out if, what the prohibition is until they see uh, the police, confiscating and destroying a toaster.
Yeah. Which I would think, like, that's real low level technology. If you're not even allowing toasters, that's a bit extreme.
Yeah, and
Like
I
you
believe
did,
that that's more or less technology that's, not quite in that fashion because it is like a kind of 50 style um like a red rounded toaster. Uh,
yeah, look at completely analog. I know these days there's probably toasters that have Wi-Fi and an app that you can program remotely and stuff where like, yeah, a modern day toaster's got a computer in it, but no, this is a completely analog,
But
harmless toaster.
I think even in the 20s they did have electric toasters, but they looked quite a bit different. They were
Mhm.
just kind of metal, and like I've seen some where it even has like an arm and there's like a lever that you can press and it will
Mhm.
turn the bread around so you can toast both sides.
Right, yeah, I've seen those. I've seen those. But so yeah, this prohibition is pretty tough. And it's funny, it's watching this now along with a contemporary series, Dune Prophecy, um, which is a lot of differences, but it's a similar, I don't know if you've been watching that series, but they've got it's a world or a universe where they've outlawed thinking machines. They kind of went down the AI route and basically Skynet happened and the humans fought back and now they've outlawed. Yeah, so they not quite to the extreme. I think they still have toasters, um, but a similar concept in terms of a technological ban and the politics of such a thing. So I thought that was an interesting, again, two very different series with very different atmospheres, um, but an interesting crossover.
Yeah, I haven't been watching. I've you know the Dune movie is on my extremely long watch
Mhm.
list. And that watch list it tends to keep getting longer and not shorter.
Yes, as it does, as it does. Yeah. I think it's good. It's not great if you're a fan of Dune, um, and if you've read the books or seen the films. It might be interesting. If you haven't seen the films, I would say watch that first and yeah, see
Yeah,
that it.
I've seen well, I saw the sci-fi miniseries first, and then I saw the David Lynch film, and
Okay.
then I read the book.
Oh, so you've actually, yeah,
And
you read the book, so you know what the deal is.
well, I don't remember any like I the book I read probably over 10 years ago, and
Okay.
I think I kind of struggled to get through the book, even though I think it helped that I had the knowledge of seeing it on screen, but
Hmm.
I think even then it was kind of a difficult read for me. But I am like I do want to watch the new movies, but I just haven't gotten haven't made time for them.
Yeah, I understand. So anyway, so getting back to speaking of technology, I want to get back to this toaster. Um, and I guess kind of reiterating my point that like the toaster is, you know, very early on in the technological spectrum, or at least, electrical or digital. But I'm looking at the toaster and this could be a toaster from 2016. They just went, they just popped on out to the shop and bought a toaster off the shelf to use. But this toaster could be from the 90s. I mean, I wouldn't say the 50s, but like there's a span of maybe 50 years where if you told me this toaster was from that time, I'd believe you. I mean, I'm guessing they didn't make much of an effort to make it look like either a 50s or a 20s toaster, but just a simple two slice toaster, like that technology changed so little over decades.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's one
So
of those where they feel like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
yeah. So I guess my point is, so if you had told me, yeah, this is I don't know if you have anything, if you anything under those, but yeah, if you told me, yeah, they just in the commentary for this episode, they talk about just popping down to the shop and getting a 15 or a 20 pound toaster off the shelf. Or if you said, what, no, they had their prop guys working on it for weeks to make a period accurate toaster from the 50s. I'm like, yeah, I can buy that too. Just yeah, toasters all look the same. I don't know if that racist. Am I allowed to say that?
I'll allow it.
That's a bad joke. I'm sorry. I apologize. But anyway, yes. So I found the toaster interesting in regards to
Yeah,
technology.
yeah, and then after the toaster, they have the simulants, the expanoids. They come in
Mhm.
and they get ready to execute the people, the scientists, I guess, that had the confiscated technology, and that's when the Red Dwarf crew jump in and try to save them, but one of them gets shot, and in his dying moments, he gives them this MacGuffin,
Mhm.
uh, which it's kind of a weird design. It's like a little bit steampunk, but it's very small and it's not really focused on that much. It just looks like this weird little sci-fi gadget. It looks like a little steampunk, but it also looks much more advanced than 1950s technology. Like even uh, our history, 1950s technology, let alone in 1950s technology that's been delayed by 11 years of having technology be outlawed.
Mhm. Yeah, it doesn't really look like anything. Like I can't fathom any, if you ask me to hypothesize like what parts move or what it does or how it operates, I'd have no idea. It's just a thing of a bob. Um, and like you said, it's a MacGuffin to get them onto the next scene.
Yeah, and they have a a little gag in there whenever the guy first gives them a card and it's for the for a pizza place and he's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, sorry, wrong pocket." And of course, everybody's still wearing their uh, their regular outfits and they have to blend in. And even though they don't give any sort of explanation of how they paid for these outfits or whether they stole them, but they go into a gentleman's attire shop and then come
Mhm.
out looking the part for the 1920s, going to a
Yeah.
speakeasy.
Convenience shop is right there. They walk in, flash, they walk out, and they blend right in. Um, yeah, and everything is fitted perfectly. So I don't know if very quick, very generous tailor there, because yeah, we no indication of how they paid for anything.
Right. And I do think that
They-
Cat still manages to look the most stylish out of the four.
oh, of course, yeah. Um, and then they hop into an automobile, but
Yeah,
do
one
they
of the
say I
steam
think
powered.
it's steam powered? Yeah.
Yeah, and then they go to this speakeasy, um, where they're, it's a technology speakeasy, and we get another a fun gag with the sliding door slot
Hmm.
and the doorman. Uh, and I love Rimmer. He has got just a great scene where he says, people
Yeah.
trust people who speak British. They so Lister don't say anything.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the subtle digs of
Mhm.
Lister.
And I also like how he's like, they have a for some reason they trust people that say whom a lot.
Whom? Whom?
And so, of course, whenever he's talking to the doorman, he manages to say whom about 4 or 5 times during
Yeah.
his little speech.
He packs in, yeah, way more whom's than you would think would be possible in such a short space. I don't know about the Hume thing. Um, I think there's a certain English accent that Americans are susceptible to, and yeah, we may think people are more intelligent um, just for that accent, but yeah, having known some English people, it's no, it's not true. They're just as varied on both ends of the spectrum as Americans. But yeah, I think there is something to the accent, and then yeah, the whom bit just makes it funny.
Yeah, and then they finally manage to get inside this speakeasy, like more luck than anything else, just
Yeah,
because they
well,
luck
I love
into
the
the Lister name.
yeah the bouncer's reaction to Rimmer's whoming is what is it like? Are you on the giggle juice? Which
Yeah.
that was new to me. I don't know if that was actual 20s slang
Yeah, I'm not sure
or if that's
either
something
because
the show made up.
the other place that I've heard Giggle Juice is actually the first Fantastic Beasts movie. I believe they have either Giggle Juice or
Oh,
Giggle Water. And that's like in that movie, that's literally giggle water, you drink it and
yeah.
then you just start uncontrollably giggling.
Yeah, I think that's something else than what this guy's talking about. Um, but yeah, apparently so yeah, like you said, apparently Lister was the name to drop, and that's the code word that gets them in.
Yeah, and they get in and it's, basically again we get this kind of fun design where it's set up like more or less like a traditional 20 speakeasy, except half the people are in lab coats and we've got like Bunsen beakers and Erlenmeyer flasks and chalkboards with equations written on them all over the place. And then we have I believe it's Harmony de Goutier.
Yeah, yeah, Harmony de Goutier. Yes, it's yeah, half speakeasy, half high school chemistry class.
Yeah, and she is dressed like a typical flapper with a lab coat over the top of her outfit. And she is, and I think her speech is so fantastic because like especially if you're a nerd, because she goes through this,
Yeah.
she's talking like kind of like an escort, like
Hmm.
she's talking about all these things as if they were sexual favors, but they're all like actual bits of theories
Yeah, they're
and
actually things, but yeah, the way she's pitching them or the way she says them, she'll do um she'll do relativity, both kinds, standard and general,
yeah, but not the Big Bang.
but not the Big Bang. Yeah. Uh, she'll even do a slit experiment. She's a very open-minded woman.
Yeah, that's the yeah, the double slit experiment,
Oh, double slit. Yeah.
which I mean that's I'm nerdy enough to know exactly what that is. Talking about where you can observe the change of particle of light being a particle versus a
Particle
wave.
wave. Yeah. So like you said, it's all very accurate, at least as much as this nerd can tell. So that was a nice, yeah, Easter egg. I mean, if you didn't know it, it sounds like science fiction mumbo jumbo, but then yeah, if you know what they're talking about, um,
Yeah, I think
it's
it's a good change of pace between this and Star Trek because I feel like in Star Trek they have a lot of scientific mumbo jumbo, but it's like based in their rural world, and a
Mhm.
lot of it is based in you know real scientific theories that in terms of like warp drive, but whenever you get into like dilithium crystals and stuff like that, that's just all sci-fi mumbo jumbo gobbledygook.
Mhm.
Where this, like, everything that she's saying is like scientifically accurate, and I think that that kind of, and it's, it, to a layman it's complete gobbledygook. It's kind of like the Futurama two percenter jokes,
Right.
because like
Yeah.
Futurama will do a very similar thing where they will take the time to like have this background sign gag, which is like a an equation, and
Mhm.
people who know this equation, they might recognize it and see that it's actually 100% accurate. But anybody else sees that equation and they just say, "Oh, that's just some generic equation that doesn't mean anything."
Mhm. Yeah. Did you look into any of the equations that are on the boards in the speakeasy? Were there any that you could
No,
look out?
I didn't I didn't go that far. I honestly didn't even, think about that until it just now one, which it does kind of make me wonder whether or not those are accurate, or if those are just um, made up, which, I almost feel like even, let's see, what year did I say this was? 2016? Yeah.
2016.
Yeah, I think it would almost be easier to just Google an equation and copy it down word, symbol by symbol, rather than
Hmm.
trying to make something up.
Yeah. I was gonna say I didn't look up any I didn't do any research or look them up either. I just happened to I thought of it I because I just happened to pause the episode right when they're showing one of the blackboards, and I'm looking at it's been a while since school and I took any physics or anything, but like some of these equations, like they're close enough. I'd buy it. They're plausible at least. I would say if they're not actual equations for something, that at least the person who made them up um, knew what they were doing.
Yeah. Yeah, and then we get
So
the information about how um like all the actual like well-known scientists like Einstein and such, they've kind
mhm.
of given up, and they just are drinking themselves to death out in the corner, and Einstein specifically is just pushing a pram around with a bunch of string talking about his
Oh, shit.
theory.
Talking about his theory, yeah.
And then of course
That-
Cat jumps in with the, "Whoever heard of a pram theory?"
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I think they're also being time accurate. That all the things they're talking about, double slit experiment and relativity, and like Copenhagen interpretation, were all things like 1920s, 1930s, or earlier. So all things that would have been developed before the expanoids came in and stopped development. So there's actually some plausibility there in terms of kind of what underground science they might have.
Hmm. And
Yeah.
then they go out and they find a guy who looks like Einstein with a cart full of a bunch of random bits of string, just
Random picture string. Yeah. Yeah. So
just
yeah.
standing by a trash fire, keeping himself warm.
Um, well, because that's what they were told to look for. They were told,
Hmm.
yeah, Einstein would be out, huddled over a barrel with his pram full of string. So they found a, vaguely Einsteinish looking gentleman with his pram full of string. So you can kind of see where the mistake happens. But
Hmm.
oh, the merry mix-up.
Yeah, and they bring him back, and then Harmony corrects him and says, "Oh, he's not Einstein." And it's like, "Yeah, I never properly introduced myself. I'm Bob, Bob the Bum."
Bob. Bob the Bum. Yeah. But they're convinced, or they try to convince Bob that he's a genius. So they've got um, their MacGuffin has two parts that need to be put together, and um, yeah, it's up to Bob to do it. To channel his inner Einstein.
Yeah, and I love Bob's line of so I need to put this potato into this potato.
Yeah, yeah, suddenly it's a potato. This potato.
And then I also love the next gag that we get with the raid coming in, and then all the tables flipping over, which, it in theory would probably create a mess and potentially an explosion
Oh,
because you have all these open beakers filled with liquid and then it's just being flipped over in
yeah.
under.
Yeah, you expect there's going to be a mess, but it's funny. So they're kind of going backwards. So it's like, no, no, we weren't doing any science here. We're just gambling and drinking like honest folk.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And all the Red Dwarf crew jumps up with the band.
jump up on stage and well, Crichton says, I think the policewoman asks like why he looks the way he does or what happened. He said, hey, what I went bobbing for apples in a cement mixer.
Yeah, and then Kat does a tap dance routine, and then Lister goes to drink because he's holding one of the Erlenmeyer flasks with,
Yeah.
just some red liquid, and he goes to drink it, and then he stops himself because he realizes he has no idea what's in that
Yeah.
flask.
What's in that flask? Yeah.
And that's kind of when they get called out. They're like, "Hey, why are you drinking from an Erlenmeyer flask?"
That is suspicious. Why would they be drinking from a flask? Yeah. But Bob manages to get the one potato into the other potato just in time.
Yeah. Although
Yeah.
before that, I do like that they
Oh,
they kind of call back to a conversation that they had at the beginning where the main guy, whatever his
oh,
number designation
oh,
is,
four
four of
of
27.
27. And then what was it? Rimmer says something about 3 of 63,
Yeah.
who turned out to be there.
Yeah, he's there's two expanoids and it happens to be 4 of 27 and 3 of 63 and it happens to be the one that he had the disagreement, that he was bad talking about on the ship. And he's like, "Oh, don't worry about that. Uh, we've moved past all that."
Yeah. Yeah, I like this universe, their version of um oh, my mind suddenly went blank. Borg. This universe, their version of the Borg still has enough personality that they get into these petty disagreements.
Yeah, because even though that they are, loosely based on the Borg, it's not the whole hive
Yeah.
mind concept. It's
Yeah.
it's just them thinking that they're better than humans, and they want to, improve their position in the future.
Hmm. Yeah, so you could see a spin-off of, an office type series, a workplace comedy based on one of the expandoid ships.
Yeah, and then, like you said, Bob manages to get the two potatoes to be one potato just in time and activates the EMP pulse and disables the two expanoids and luckily they happen to be wearing 4 of 27 happens to be wearing the chrono device around
Mhm.
his neck, which is exactly what they need to get back to their own time. And they're about to set off the worldwide EMP to completely disable all of the expanoids, but it will also um, deactivate Crichton and Rimmer. And at first, Rimmer's like, "Well, it's okay. We can just live here and it'll be fine." And then Crichton reminds Rimmer that whenever it goes off, you'll be deactivated too. And then Rimmer suddenly changes his mind and he's like, "Oh, let's start running then."
I love have I enjoy how selfish and self-centered all of these characters can be at different times. And then at
Mhm.
different times there, we saw there's so much teamwork and some of them, so much of them operating as a team in this strange world throughout the episode. But then at the end, they're always ready to turn on each other when the time comes.
Yeah, well, I mean, like half of them are, and Crichton is um, devoted to Lister, but he's kind of more indifferent towards Rimmer and Kat. Like
Yeah.
he's definitely he's not antagonistic towards them ever,
Hmm.
but he's
He's
not
indifferent. Yeah.
he's not as devoted to them as he is to Lister.
Yeah.
And
Whereas like on the other, yeah, on the other end of the spectrum is Cat, who needs them around because he needs someone to appreciate how awesome he is. Basically, someone that fabulous deserves an audience, but that's I think the only use that he has for for the rest of the crew.
yeah, and he enjoys being around Lister. He yeah, he can take or leave Crichton, and he doesn't like Rimmer,
Mhm.
but he's still selfish through and through. So if there's any opportunity where, he has to throw any of them under the bus to save his own skin, Cat will definitely do that.
Yeah, yeah.
But they managed to get get the chrono device and get to Starbug and get out just in time and make it back to their timeline. And then we have this this kind of aside at the end with Lister kind of not exactly talking to camera, but kind of talking to camera about him talking about how it's a good thing that machines don't do everything for us. Meanwhile, Crichton is right there taking his shoes and socks off and brushing his teeth for him.
Yeah, yeah.
And then that's
So
then we go into credits, and that's
yeah. So no, we didn't learn a thing. There's no moral to the story, just an adventure
so. Is there anything else
like that.
about this episode that to mention before we finish up here?
No, no, just that I enjoyed the episode. I'm enjoying the all the series and enjoying the podcast. Thanks for encouraging me to continue watching the series and um allow me to listen along. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, clearly, I think that the show is worth watching, or else I probably wouldn't be doing this season. But yeah, I'm glad that you're having fun with it, and I've definitely been enjoying revisiting these episodes as well. And I do think that Twentica is kind of a highlight. I think it was a good choice to kick off series 11, and yeah, and I'm looking forward to kind of finishing things up, which I'm recording these slightly out of order, so I haven't rewatched Back to Earth myself, but I'm excited to talk about Back to Earth, which the listeners will have heard about 4 weeks ago when this comes out, and Skipper, which is another one of my favorites from the newer series. And
Okay.
yeah, so thanks thanks again for joining me and talking about Red Dwarf here. And for those listening at home who may not have heard you know may not have heard you in the earlier times that you've been on the show, why don't you take a moment and let people know, of what work you're doing and where you can be found online.
Yeah, so I have yeah, thanks again for having me. I have a podcast, Next Scene Pod, where we're covering pop culture one scene at a time. But these days, mostly what we're doing is holiday specials that we've been doing going back 6, 7 years now. Um, we've done things, come December, Hanukkah, Christmas time. We cover, some holiday themed stuff. We've done stuff like the Muppet Christmas Carol, one song at a time, and we did Home Alone another year. This most recent year, we did from 1989 the film Elves, um, which is well, it's Christmas. It's got elves in it, so you can check that out. That's at nextscenepod.com. And then I also have another show that I'm trying to get kicked off for 2025, and that's Casablanca Minute, where I'll be covering the Warner Brothers classic Casablanca 1 minute at a time, and that is at casablancaminute.com. And so, yeah, as of recording, the minutes haven't started, but I've got some introductory episodes, some cult movie discussion, some other stuff. So there's some stuff if you go there now, even if I don't have the minutes up yet, but there'll be something there. So yeah, go to CasablancaMinute.com. And then, yeah, the other one was nextscenepod.com. So check those out.
Yeah, that's I know a lot of podcasts are weekly, a lot of podcasts are bi-weekly, some podcasts are monthly, but I applaud you for going for the yearly podcast schedule.
Yeah, I kind of like that format. Yeah, as someone who isn't making a living at podcasting, so has a day job and has other things pulling on my time. So yeah, I think that yearly schedule is definitely something I can keep up with. So yeah. We're looking at to tease 2025. We're looking at New Year's, which is a holiday we haven't covered yet. We've done some Christmas stuff. I did a Hanukkah series. We've done Thanksgiving with planes, trains, and automobiles. We haven't done a New Year's special, and so that's what's on the plan for 2025. So something to look
Yeah,
forward to.
which funny enough, I've actually, this season I'm covering two New Year's episodes this season, which I almost wish I had planned things out a little bit better, but it's the Eighth Doctor Paul McGann, the his Doctor Who movie from '96 that's set at New Year's, New Year's 1999 even, and of course the big time loop episode that kind of is the I guess the centerpiece of this season, Eve of the Daleks. That's also a New Year's Eve episode.
Yeah.
And of course, if you want to follow me and any of the other things that I'm doing, you can follow me on social media everywhere where I'm at Bubbawheat. You can follow this show, It's Time to Rewind, on all the available podcatchers out there. And I also have a Facebook group. It's Time to Rewind, a time loop group, and you can join that and discuss episodes as they come out and be informed of what is going to be coming up on future seasons and I just have discussions about time loop movies and TV shows, past, present, and future. It's all welcome there. And until next time, smoke me a kipper, and I will regenerate before breakfast next week.